K420 back again with another political video. I've got a couple regular ones I'm going to try to record later if I have enough time, but these two are important to me and I wanted to get them out. It's good for people to know what's going on in the world around them and to get the correct info instead of what they're feeding you on CNN and MSNBC. It's so I don't understand how they can be legal for them to feed such lies out to people, but it is. And so you have to pick apart everything and you have to find sources for everything. Up here in the corner, you might see I have a shield called News Guard when I'm on a channel or when I'm on a news site that's been I'll show you. I'll show you in a minute. But anyway, my point is that the information you can't just take what you hear anymore for granted. You have to do your own digging. And as I did with this Ukraine story, not only did I find out this entire underneath situation going on one side with the Biden family, but that same situation played into where I feel like Hillary Clinton is now maybe part of it because I feel she may have done this same move that she pulled in 2015 to kneecap Biden in this situation, and I believe she's going to take his moderate vote and jump in and be the savior for and be nominated the candidate. But that's not here or there, is it? We're going to talk about Ukraine, and we're going to talk about this crap that's come out, how it came out, who it came out with, and where it all started. Because it did not start this week. As I said in my last video, Trump is known for tweeting about everything from the climate change hoax based on the weather today to a rude waitress at a restaurant. He will tweet about it, but yet he did not Biden and Hunter Biden's Ukrainian connections in Twitter. This was brought out by an intel agent, CIA agent who is abusing the whistleblower program. Yeah. Sorry, I had to kill a spider. Look, I've been eaten alive and I just saw one run while I was doing this video. I had to hide my neck because I've been digging at it all day. I got bit and I just happened to see one take off running while we were recording. I don't care. Anyway, guys, this article I happened to show in my other video, but it applies here as well. Article was written 9 days before Donald Trump was inaugurated. It was during the presidential transition. This was written by Ken Vogel, who is look up here in the right. This is News Guard rated, means that they checked all kinds of stuff to make sure. It's going to show you in a second here. And basically Ken Vogel, David Stern, both well-known journalists here, say that Donald Trump was not the only candidate whose campaign was boosted by officials of a Soviet bloc country. Ukrainian government officials tried to help Hillary Clinton and undermine Trump by publicly questioning his fitness for office. They also disseminated documents implicating a Trump aide in corruption and suggested they were investigating the matter only to back away from it after the election. They helped Clinton allies research damaging information on Trump and his advisors, a political investigation has found. Ukrainian American operative who was consulting for the Democratic National Committee met with top officials. Oh, here we go. Shoot. There we go. That's the problem. Met with top officials in Washington in an effort to expose ties between Trump, top campaign aide Paul Manafort, and Russia, according to people with direct knowledge. Meaning that Alexandra Chalupa, who worked for the DNC, was sent down to Ukraine to do this women in democracy thing, a study on women in democracy during the election. Okay, first of all, why would Hillary Clinton send a DNC operative to Ukraine during the election? Why wouldn't she have her out here speaking? She's trying to get her elected. Maybe if she had done that, she would have got elected. But instead, she had sent her to Ukraine to find dirt on Paul Manafort. Alexander Chalupa was the one that found the ledger. Supposedly was given the ledger in Ukraine by a prosecutor who said that he was investigating the case, but dropped it shortly after the election. Okay, now does that make a little more sense to you? The Ukrainian efforts had an impact by helping to force Manafort to resign, advance the narrative that Trump's campaign was connected to Ukraine's foe to the east, Russia, but they were far less concerted or centrally directed than Russia's alleged hack. We're not going to say that again. Russia did not hack and disseminate the DNC emails. Seth Rich was his name. He was a DNC data manager. He was a data person. He had full access to the DNC servers, even though they'll tell you he didn't. Seth Rich was shot in the back in the summer during the primary because he stole emails after he realized that Hillary Clinton was stealing the primary. He downloaded emails on a thumb drive. Him and his brother Aaron Rich, who is still alive, which is why the Riches don't want to admit to any of this. They sold the information to WikiLeaks for $40,000 through the payment method was eBay. Ex-CIA agents that work for a place called VIPS, Veteran Intel Professionals, whatever. They did a deep dive on this, and they said that it was impossible for Russia to hack that amount of information the way that they said it was done, that the speed it was done at. They found the exact moment that data was transferred, and the speed that data was transferred at could not possibly be done over the internet like they were saying by hacking. It had to have been done onto a thumb drive, some sort of removable drive. And therefore, it makes sense when we've already been told through WikiLeaks that, yes, they were given a thumb drive with the DNC emails on it. That was from Seth Rich, as I said, and therefore he died to get those emails out. And I refuse to let Russia take credit for it, even though the Mueller investigation basically was used to cover up Seth Rich's murder. Russia's effort was personally directed by Vladimir Putin, says this newspaper, involved in the country's military foreign intelligence, according to U.S. intelligence officials. They reportedly briefed Trump last week on the possibility that Russian operatives might have compromising information on the president. This was in 2017, guys. Remember this, 10 days before he got elected. Okay? Or not elected, 10 days before he got inaugurated. I'm sorry. So it says there's little evidence of such a top-down effort by Ukraine. Longtime observers suggest that the rampant corruption, factionalism, and economic struggles plaguing the country, not to mention its ongoing strife with Russia, would render it unable to pull off an ambitious covert interference in the campaign in another country's election. Bullshit. President Petro Poroshenko, who was in bed with Biden and Obama, along with the Ukrainian embassy in Washington, insist they stayed neutral. Well, let's find out. This is the first article that Rudolph Giuliani, Donald Trump's personal lawyer, who used the ex-mayor of New York City, he came out with this. If you happen to notice the date, guys, this was May. In May of this year, he came on to Fox News and he reported some information that was going on. And not only did it not pick up in the news, but nobody mentioned him doing this as an interference in the election. So listen up to this, because I think it's really important that everybody hears that this article came out again in May. Hopefully it will play. Come on. All right, we'll read. Sometimes they do and sometimes they don't, guys. I don't know. I can't ever win. All right, I'll read it. Sometimes And
joining me now exclusively is President Trump's personal attorney, Rudy Giuliani. All right, Mr. Mayor, Rubio says, take a chill pill, basically. this subpoena for Don Jr. is just apparently part of just generic oversight. What's your reaction tonight?
Oh, well, I mean, I respect both senators very, very much. I've actually campaigned for both of them. I don't understand what the oversight is. I mean, he testified for 29 hours, I think. So maybe there's a question or two that wasn't asked. They could, send him an interrogatory and get the answer. I don't know why you'd harass the man more than you have. I mean, actually, Mueller came to a pretty definitive conclusion that Donald Trump Jr. did nothing wrong, that there was no suggestion that he would have any reason to have believed that it was a violation of the law to meet with that Russian woman. It turns out that the really interesting...
Sorry, I want to move ahead because it's a 12-minute video and I don't want you to have to watch
Rudy,
the whole thing.
Call me Persis.
I want to get to the Ukraine stuff. Here we go, right here. There we go. I want to get right to it. Sorry. It's a lot.
Investigate Biden and his family. You and I've talked about this before on the show. And these questionable ties to the Ukraine, especially the sweetheart payday Hunter Biden ended up getting with a fund there. Here are just a few of the examples. Let's listen.
Giuliani, the president's personal attorney, has been really pushing the Justice Department to go hard on Hunter Biden's ties to Ukraine.
It is a blatant move to use a foreign power to tarnish Trump's potential general election opponent.
Rudy Giuliani is telegraphing it. It's clearly Hunter, and in some ways they almost want to create a foreign interference, throw in the Ukrainians and the Russians, and Giuliani has been to the Ukraine. He's got Ukrainian clients.
Wait a second.
They're out of their minds.
Well, listen to this, Rudy. Hold on. Just within the last hour, it gets better. The New York Times posted this story online. Quote, Giuliani plans Ukraine trip to push for inquiries that could help Trump. Ooh, you're not allowed to travel, apparently, Rudy.
Well, I'm his lawyer.
Do you notice that the same person that wrote that article was the same person that wrote the last article I read you that knows what Ukraine did?
Explanations of what your client was charged with.
I'm not kidding. I want you to see that. This is how pathetic when I say you cannot believe the news. Look at this. What's that name at the bottom again? Hold on. Let's go back just a little bit. Oh, too far. You see it? Ken Vogel. Is that what it said? Hang on. There it is. That could help Trump. Come on, get the F out of the way. Tonight, Kenneth Vogel. Giuliani plans Ukraine trip to push for inquiries that could help Trump. I guess he's not lying because that's what he was doing. But guess what? He already knew that Ukraine interfered in that election. Why? Because I just read you an article that he wrote about Ukrainian interference in the freaking election. They lie. They lie. They fucking lie.
Giuliani plans Ukraine trip to push for inquiries that could help Trump. Ooh, you're not allowed to travel, apparently, Rudy.
Well, I'm his
client.
lawyer. One of the things lawyers do when you defend a client is to develop innocent hypothesis explanations of what your client was charged with. Well, the fact is that this was a massive collusion between the Democratic National Committee, officials of the Obama administration, Clinton people, and the Ukrainian officials, corrupt officials, who, by the way, were pro-Russian corrupt officials, to create false information about Trump, about Manafort. This is real, not collusion.
Same thing I just read
conspiracy to present false information and to leak it to the press and to give it to the FBI. The Ukrainian government is presently investigating it.
Oh, this makes me want to chain smoke.
Is to make sure that Soros representatives, who has a lot of influence in that government, and a very highly corrupt Ukrainian who actually participated in creating a false document about Paul Manafort.
Yep.
Actually, he's been found guilty of that by a Ukrainian court.
Sure he is.
That they do not prevent the continuation of this investigation, which they are trying to do. All I want the Ukrainian government to do is investigate and don't let these people buffalo you. And that's what they're trying to do.
But
now,
Rudy, I don't understand this. Why isn't the media interested in this? Why isn't the media pursuing this? If they're so into Russian collusion, corrupt. Why not this? I mean, it's a fascinating story, and everyone has to read John Solomon's reporting on it.
It's a dramatic story, and
this was in May, you guys.
Will not get to election day without this being investigated. Not because I want to see him investigated. This is collateral to what I was doing.
This is when Hillary Clinton got her whistleblower right here.
Was appointed the point man for
she
Ukraine.
went,
2 to 3 weeks later,
she did a couple moves right here when she saw this.
Out of the military for testing positive to cocaine, was appointed to a position on the most corrupt agency or the most corrupt business in Ukraine, a natural gas business called Burisma, which was headed by an oligarch who was being protected by Putin in Russia. And Biden's kid took down about $3 to $4 million we can count.
50 grand a month.
And Biden, when the kid got under investigation, actually says, quote, I strong-armed the president of the Ukraine to dismiss the prosecutor.
Sure did.
Because the son of I'll leave it out, was corrupt. What he left out of the explanation was that prosecutor was right on the tail of his son, looking for the money that appeared to have been laundered from Latvia to Croatia to America. And when he tried to get the Croatian government to give the amount of money that Hunter Biden received, all of a sudden the president of the Ukraine gets a call from the vice president of the United States, and he's told, you're not going to get your $1.2 billion loan guarantee, which they needed then to prevent default unless you dismiss the prosecutor. Yeah. The president didn't want to do it. He was the godfather of the prosecutor's children. He didn't want to do it.
This is like a James Patterson novel.
Now, if you tell me this doesn't get investigated between now and election day, then our justice system is as corrupt.
As
Rudy,
the Washington Hunter Biden had no experience. CNN, he had no experience in this. He had no experience in natural gas.
Laura, to Donald Trump and Donald Trump Jr.
Oh, forget
this would be on the front page of every one of those newspapers.
Chuck
and
Todd
all
wouldn't
over
be rolling
CNN
his eyes
for the last 4 weeks.
Yeah,
this
wouldn't be rolling his
eyes. The best evidence I've seen of media corruption.
Rudy, I want to get back.
All right, so now this is a little bit more recent. Okay, this is the same paper, same Real Clear Politics, left-wing paper, different writer, different everything. This is Giuliani again on one of the shows, and I want you to see where they were what was going on at this point, because they have really, in this behind the scenes, deep in the deep state, there was at play, something was going on. They were changing the requirements for the whistleblower application to be filed under making it possible for hearsay to be submitted, like third and fourth, second and third person hearsay to be admitted as evidence, and you to be protected under the Whistleblowers Act, so that your identity and such on could not be known. So pay attention, listen. Oh, do I have to read it again? Come on. All right, so this is what I'll do. Oh, there we go. Now I gotta play again. There we go. Press play here.
What would Hunter Biden's lawyer say? Did I ever ask?
There we go. Now get back up there.
Chinese government? No, it's not my. There. If I did that, you could truly say I was investigating Joe Biden. I'm not investigating Joe Biden. I fell upon Joe Biden in investigating how the Ukrainians were conspiring with the Hillary Clinton campaign.
Still sticks to what I told you.
To turn over dirty information, including something for which a Ukrainian has already been convicted. So I have a very solid basis for doing it. I also support everything I say with affidavits. I have an affidavit here that's been online for 6 months that nobody bothered to read, from the gentleman who was
there you go.
To Shokin, the so-called corrupt prosecutor. The Biden people say that he wasn't investigating Hunter Biden at the time. He says under oath that he was.
There you go. Under oath.
He says that under oath. He must not be, we don't even know him. He must not be telling the truth.
We know that Vice President Biden was part of an international effort, was part of a government-wide
Jesus,
effort.
here we go again.
The prosecutor.
The name here was Donald Trump and Donald Trump Jr. And it said that the president of the Ukraine asked me to resign due to pressure from the U.S. presidential administration. The truth is that I was forced out because I was leading a wide-ranging corruption probe into Burisma Holdings and Joe Biden's son. That's under oath by the prosecutor who was handling the case, who they say is corrupt. Now, a lot of prosecutors.
It's not just they said it's corrupt. The European Union said he's corrupt. The entire U.S. administration.
Oh, they also
Because he didn't go along with the president.
That's why he was removed from office.
No, it wasn't. The reason he was removed from office was he resigned because the president forced him to resign. And then, just in case we want to deal with the corruption thing, I have another affidavit, this time from another Ukrainian prosecutor who says that the day after Biden strong-armed the president to choke him, they show up in the prosecutor's office, lawyers for Hunter Biden show up in the prosecutor's office, and they give an apology for dissemination of false information.
I know.
And you know what the apology is for? For having gotten out the story that this guy was corrupt. Now, if you met this guy, he's not very good at corruption because he's very poor. Well, unlike the prosecutor who tanked the case on Biden, who's driving around in a Bentley.
Okay, you've gotten those charges out there. Let's talk.
No, I haven't gotten them out there.
No, you have gotten them.
No, I haven't.
These are those affidavits.
All right, I'm not going to keep doing that, but there you go.
Can I just make a slight contrast with the so-called whistleblower? The whistleblower says, I don't have any direct knowledge. I just heard things. Up until...
All right, I'm going to keep going because that skipping shit drive me nuts. All right, I don't know why Real Clear Politics videos play like that, but so now I want everybody to remember back about this time last year. This time last year, a huge New York Times op-ed came out that said, I am part of the resistance. There's an administration official writes in an extraordinary NYT New York Times op-ed. So in New York Times, an anonymous official came out and said that they're right here, a senior official in the Trump administration authored, says that President Trump is facing a test to his presidency unlike any faced by a modern American leader. The root of the problem, the author writes, is the president's amorality. Anyone who works with him knows he's not moored to any discernible first principles that guide his decision making. Oh, Jesus. These elite are ridiculous. The whole thing, anyway. This is where the whistleblower thing starts, okay? This time last year, there was a group of people, and I believe in May when they saw Giuliani was digging into the Ukraine thing and realized that Biden could be taken out with this Ukraine thing. They had to have something to come back at if it started to leak out, which it did. So they came up with the whistleblower thing. They had multiple facets working on this, and so they had their media attacking it in one way. They had the whistleblower behind the scenes attacking it in a whole nother way. But at the same time, this is where the whistleblower got all of his information from this anonymous group in the White House of resistance people who were spying basically on Trump and taking things that happened in the administration and basically exaggerating them to try to cause him to, have more reason for investigation. So let's see if it works. If not, I'm going to keep going because I get irritated real quick with these things.
The New York Times just publishing an op-ed written by what it says is an anonymous senior official.
Yeah, I already said what needs to be said. I think that's all we need to hear. Keep on going. I got a lot more to come. So let me talk about Hunter Biden a little bit and his business partner, okay? because he had some really. Let me tell you, you got to know everything. You need to know that John Kerry, our ex-State Department, under the Obama administration, he was our State Department Secretary of State. Same thing as Hillary Clinton was the first part of the Obama administration. John Kerry was in the last 4 years. But this One America's Jack Posobiec speaks to American Majority to break down the latest, and it basically says John Kerry backed out because he saw the Ukraine Burisma deal as a conflict of interest. Let's pay attention.
Well, as the Joe Biden Ukraine scandal continues to take off, new attention is turning to a member of Hunter Biden's former company. One America's Jack Posobiec speaks to the CEO of American Majority to break down the very latest.
Very excited. Welcome back to One American News. Ned Ryan, the founder and CEO.
Great news channel, guys. Great news channel.
Now, let me ask you the big question. Is Joe Biden done, and was he done in by his son, Hunter?
Well, I always thought Joe Biden was an utter mediocrity as a candidate. I thought that he was never going to win the nomination. I think he will have the rare privilege of running for president 3 times and winning 0 delegates. I think the fascinating thing that's taking place right now with Joe Biden and Hunter Biden and this whole Ukrainian story is I think people thought they were going to try and take out Trump with this. Again, from one hoax to another hoax, Russiagate to now this. I think this is going to blow back, and people are starting to have really serious conversations about what actually did happen with Joe Biden and Hunter Biden in the Ukraine. What actually happened with Hunter Biden getting an investment of $1.5 billion from the Bank of China while then Vice President Joe Biden was actually negotiating some pretty high-level sensitive stuff.
We're going to talk about that too.
So I think that this stuff is all going to ultimately blow back on Biden, and just happening as Elizabeth Warren is surging in the polls. I think this is very problematic.
To your point about us going back to the, hearkening back to the establishment ways, yes, this is exactly hearkening back to the establishment swampy ways of DC pay-to-play politics.
Right.
Only in this case, you've got this firm. It's run by Hunter Biden, but it's run by a trio, really.
Right.
It's Hunter Biden, Chris Heinz, so he's the stepson of John Kerry, Teresa Heinz, and then also this guy by the name of Devin Archer. And this formed the Rosemont Seneca Partners. One thing that's really
Whitey Bulger's nephew, Devin Archer.
Look at, there were emails obtained by FOIA, Citizens United, from
or maybe that's not till the next one.
Chris Heinz.
Let me
at the time,
take that back.
when
Allegedly,
they got on the board of Burisma, when they were doing their deals with China. So Chris Heinz then emails to the State Department when his stepfather is the Secretary of State saying, hey, I got nothing to do with these guys. I am 100% cutting ties with them. This is shady, and I want nothing. So even their partner cut ties with them.
I still have real question marks, Jack, about how on earth is this legal and ethical to have the directly related family members involved with massive deals from foreign governments while their fathers are actually in massively important roles in the government making decisions on behalf of the American people. Again, the sitting vice president of the United States and the Secretary of State and their sons are involved in accepting money from the Ukrainian government and the Chinese communists. This is insane. I think we have to have a bigger, deeper, wider conversation about it.
They didn't feel like they had a chance of getting caught. They thought Hillary Clinton had a 99.9% chance of just walking into that spot that it was Obama's, and that she would just turn the other cheek and let all of this go. That is why they behave like this.
In fact, what do we find normal and acceptable and ethical? Because I don't find this acceptable at all.
If it came out tomorrow that Donald Trump Jr. accepted a board position with
they'd hang him in the middle of the street in New York City gallows. They'd build gallows in the middle of Central Park.
This is the other thing where I think that we have to have this conversation. Again, spare me the moral lectures, dear left, from you talking about foreign sources and all of these things. And again, they're trying to blame something on Trump with this whole conversation with the Ukrainian president that I think is completely another hoax. From one hoax to another hoax.
One hoax to another.
Why are we sending all this foreign aid money overseas when we have our own issues right here? This to say, the left wants to lecture us on him having this conversation with the Ukrainian president. I'm like, the Democrats, the DNC, we're working with Ukrainians to dig up dirt on Paul Manafort.
There you go. Same thing. I want to back up 2 seconds because you need to understand that this whole scandal, everything that we're seeing today leads back to one man, and this is your man. And if you can't admit that to yourself, then you don't really have a grasp on, reality as it is. Okay. Back in 2009, a year after Obama became president, in Kyiv and Kharkiv, other cities in Ukraine, American political consultants who worked against one another in Iowa and then New Hampshire and then in the general election are facing off again in somewhat of a surreal Eastern Europe replay of the 2008 campaign. The firm headed by Hillary Clinton's former chief strategist Mark Penn is helping run incumbent President Viktor Yushchenko's campaign. Remember that. This is all in Ukraine, you guys. So she had all the ability to manipulate the election just like they said she did. Mark Penn helping. Okay. Meanwhile, Paul Manafort, who ended up what? 10 years later being what? Trump's campaign manager, worked for the Republican John McCain's losing effort. And Ted Devine, a top strategist on the Democratic presidential campaign of Al Gore in 2000 and John Kerry in 2004, are consulting for Yanukovych, the pro-Russian frontrunner in the polls. For Penn, Manafort, and Devine, foreign elections have been a lucrative source of business for years. But for the Chicago-based media consulting firm AKPD, the contracts to help guide Prime Minister Yulia Tymoshenko's campaign is part of a new growth area of business that presented itself to and helped Barack Obama win the White House last fall. Obama has been embedded in Ukraine since the day he decided to run and the day he took the White House, guys. And he lost that when Hillary lost the election. And he's losing it now because Biden's son screwed up everything. Moreover, basically, Obama ended up abandoning Ukraine like he did Libya and like he did so many other places, other places where America had attempted to either overthrow a regime or get involved in the elections, get involved in campaigns. We always screw things up and then walk away. So it says, the inconvenience of history. I don't know why they can't. There it is. Let's talk. Okay. Obama abandons another country to its fate. Yeah, let's talk about that. President wished to change the subject at a press conference the other day while he was being interrogated about Ukraine. When a reporter asked a question about healthcare, Obama was delighted. As the excellent Peter Baker reported in New York Times, Mr. Obama seems intent on not letting Russia dominate his presidency. He's been trying to escape the Middle East for years and pivot to Asia. The tiresome future of Obama, his dogmatic views. Let's see, keep going. Maybe this is what Obama's impatience with history has left him patient with evil. It's not a pretty sight, but for his broken policy is riddled with such ironies. Here is another one. Baker reports that the president has elected to revise his Russia policy into an updated version of the Cold War strategy containment. How 20th century. So why did President Trump mention CrowdStrike to the Ukrainian president? You may be asking yourself. If you're not familiar with the Russia investigation and what I just explained to you about Seth Rich being the actual leaker, I'll explain a little bit about this call, okay? I refuse to admit that Russia did that because there's nothing that proves it. They've never proven it. Robert Mueller did not give one piece of evidence that helped him come up with that decision. It's just been a talking point as far as I'm concerned. During a controversial phone call, President Donald Trump and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, Trump asked Zelensky for a favor to help locate a server linked with security company CrowdStrike, according to unclassified transcript called Wednesday. He says, I would like you, I'm going to read it, okay? I'd like you to do a favor though, because our country has been through a lot and Ukraine knows a lot about it. I would like you to find out what happened with this whole situation with Ukraine. They say CrowdStrike. I guess you have one of your wealthy people, the server, they say Ukraine has it. Trump said, according to document. I think you're surrounding yourself with the same people. I'd like to have the U.S. Attorney Bill Barr call you or your people, and I would like you to get to the bottom of it, he says. It appears Trump asked Zelensky to search for a server linked with a 2016 breach of the DNC incident, which California-based CrowdStrike helped investigate. CrowdStrike famously attributed the breach to the Russian Advanced Persistent Threat (APT) groups known as Cozy Bear or APT-29 and Fancy Bear APT-28. The whistleblower complaint alleges much of the same. Trump has long alleged a DNC server is missing. This is what they say. I want you to hear. Okay, listen to this side first. There's two parts here. There's what they say and what facts say. Trump has long alleged the DNC server is missing, a theory which appears to be based on a conspiracy theory. Whenever you see that put somewhere in a paragraph, know that they're lying. It's bullshit. When they use conspiracy theory to degrade someone or to cut down their, vetting, to vet someone, to make them, basically look like they're nothing. That's what they're doing. Anyway, CrowdStrike was involved in the cover-up of the DNC breach. But in reality, there are no missing machines linked with the DNC breach. That are actually missing. Instead of one server, there were actually more than 140 servers decommissioned by the DNC in June 2016. Bullshit, I say. But the Russian, many of them cloud-based. This was done in an attempt to remove the Russians from the DNC system. So CrowdStrike went in, said they found Russian hackers in the servers. The FBI came 8 times to the DNC. Listen, and they never got to see the servers. They never got to see that there was Russians hackers in the hacking trails in the servers. No one from the FBI ever saw this with their own eyes. The FBI was denied access to the server when they requested it for the purposes of their own investigation. And when denied access, they did not take another step further to gain access. Now, this was done in an attempt to remove them, according to filings. The DNC replaced software, including operating systems for more than 180 computers and rebuilt 11 servers so they could wipe out every trace of Seth Rich, anything he might have been able to do to leave little tips or tricks in there to let anybody know what was going on. Oh, I don't know, maybe dead man switches, whatever. With regards to our investigation of the DNC hack, we provided all forensic. Now, this is what they did do. They gave a redacted report to the FBI, you guys. That's it. They did their own investigation on the server. They wiped them clean, put new operating systems on them, and then they handed the FBI a report and said, here you go. This is complete nonsense. Oh, by the way, it's been fully supported by the intelligence community. Not that matters anymore. They have no credibility at all. This is complete nonsense. DNC Director Shoshotl Hinosa said, Trump still hasn't accepted that Russia interfered in our election. Instead, is using a call with a foreign leader to push conspiracy theories. This is surreal. Well, I'm going to show you that this is not a conspiracy theory. Stone was a part of Robert Mueller's investigation into Trump. He is actually still currently a defendant, one of the final defendants that has taken his case to trial. And here we go. during his trial recently, he filed a motion, it looks like, for Brady material, which is, exculpatory material that may prove that you're innocent or whatever, okay? So he filed for this exculpatory material, sorry. And I did. The hell? There they are. Okay, sorry guys. I gotta get something really quick. There. Defendant Roger J. Stone has filed a motion seeking to compel production of certain unredacted reports from the cybersecurity company CrowdStrike. So I told you that they sent the FBI, that the reporter said the report said we sent the FBI a redacted report from servers that we investigated, and that's what he wanted. He wanted that report, or he wanted them to produce the server. Either one or the other, because that would show that he, I guess, prove whatever part of his case that needed to be proved, that he was innocent. I haven't really read the entire Stone case. So anyway, it says, so document 103, the government has no reason to believe the redacted information constitutes Brady material and does not possess the information the defendant seeks. Wait, why doesn't the government possess the redacted report? Or what do you mean? Who possesses it? The government would be the only one that would get that report. FBI, CIA, whatever. It's stored somewhere. Someone got the report, right? Because that's what it says in the Mueller report. The Mueller report says it. By May 2016, the DNC and the Democratic Campaign Committee became aware that their computer systems had been compromised by intrusions, and hired a cybersecurity company, CrowdStrike, to identify the extent of the intrusions and mitigate the threat. On June 14, 2016, the DNC, via CrowdStrike, politically announced it had been hacked by Russian actors. Washington Post, DNC says Russian hackers penetrated. Yeah, that doesn't make it any more credible either. Washington Post. Keep going here. All right. The government, by counsel for the DNC and DCC at the time of the voluntary production, counsel for the DNC told the government that the redacted material concerned steps taken to remediate the attack and to harden the DNC and DCC against future attack. According to counsel, no redacted information concerned the attribution of the attack to Russian actors. The government has also provided defense counsel the opportunity to review additional reports obtained from CrowdStrike related to the hack. And then it says the material the defendant seeks is not discoverable. So it goes in, it says the defendant argues he is entitled to unredacted reports because they constitute Brady exculpatory evidence under Brady. However, there is no reason to believe that it constitutes Brady. The defendant is not charged with conspiring to hack the DNC or the DCC. The defendant is charged with making false statements to Congress regarding his interactions with Organization 1, aka WikiLeaks, and the Trump campaign, and intimidating a witness to cover up his criminal acts, which is a lie. He did not. There's this comedian crackerhead that frickin' is lost his mind, and basically now Roger Stone is charged with some crap. But anyway, any information about what any information regarding what remediation steps CrowdStrike took to remove the Russian threat from the system and strengthen the DNC and DCC systems against subsequent attack is not relevant to these charges. And in any case, the government does not need to prove at the defendant's trial that the Russians hacked the DNC. Remember that. Again, you've just been told no one has proved the Russians hacked the DNC. And again, the government does not need to prove that. in order to prove the defendant made false statements, tampered with a witness, and obstructed justice into a congressional investigation regarding election interference. So go down here a little bit. And here's why they cannot produce this evidence. Because the government does not possess the requested information. That's the truth. As the government has advised the defendant in a letter following its filing, the government does not possess the material the defendant seeks. The material was provided to the government by counsel for DNC with remediation information redacted. However, the government has provided defense counsel the opportunity to review additional unredacted reports it possesses, and defense counsel has done so. Conclusion: the government respectfully requests the defendant's motion be denied. And it says, respectfully submitted, who? Clinton lawyer Jesse Liu. And who else? Let's see who else is involved. Special Attorney's Office, Aaron Zelinsky, who really doesn't have much of a history at all. But anyway, that's very important. Okay, you just saw that the entire server issue what Trump is looking for with Ukraine has a purpose. Why? Because the FBI never saw the servers. He's trying to find out how Russiagate got started. And it happens to be that he found out it started in Ukraine. And instead of investigating that, the Democrats are using that as an impeachment method. And I hope in some way I've showed you that. Quickly, I really want this to hurry up here. Hold on.
Breaking news: subpoenas
All right, hold
flying
on.
in the battle over impeachment. House Democrats now demanding President Trump's person.
Give me a second. I only want to show you a minute of this, but it's very important. If this week you happen to be somebody who happened to watch
Biden's team
Adam come out and do the hearing and say what he thought the Ukrainians took Trump's words as, instead of reading his actual words, was what the law said he is supposed to do when reading it in the record. So I want to show you something that you might not know. That same person, Adam Schiff, he tried to get the Russians involved to get dirt on Trump while investigating him. And it was actually a radio show that called and pranked him. Only it showed how desperate he was to get dirt on Donald Trump during the investigation during like 2017 or 18. Watch.
In that call record is a president of the United States used the full weight of his office to manufacture dirt on his opponent.
So you have recordings of both Sobchak and Buseva where they're discussing the compromising material on Mr. Trump?
Absolutely.
Well, obviously we would welcome a chance to get copies of those recordings.
Of course, Jesse was doing a prank call.
You want naked pictures of Trump?
It was a prank call. He thought it was legit. So Democrats can ask foreigners to investigate Trump, but Trump can't ask foreigners to investigate Democrats. Got it, everybody? That's what this is all about. And there's a lot of fake news coming out of the Biden campaign because they keep on saying that, you know what, everybody in Europe wanted this one prosecutor fired. And I thought to myself, I wonder why that is.
Listen up.
I went to start looking and who was on the board of directors of Burisma, and guess what I found? Alan Apter from Renaissance Capital, the Russian investment bank that paid Bill Clinton $500,000 to speak in Moscow. He's the director. Then we have Cofer Black, CIA. We have the former president of Poland, and we also have Devin Archer, who's John Kerry's former foreign policy advisor.
That's who Devin Archer is.
Well-connected, very wealthy group of individuals, and they wanted to get the word out to their friends that this guy was...
Okay, I wanted you to know that. That's all I needed you to hear from that, is the little thing on Adam Schiff, and who also was on the board at Burisma that was being investigated rightfully. investigated until Joe Biden made that prosecutor be fired and replaced him with a prosecutor that would work better with the Bidens. All right, so Hunter Biden also had a deal with China, and it's huge. It's with the Bank of China, and I think that's just as important to talk about because it was a deal that took place with Whitey Bulger's nephew, as well as John Kerry's stepson. He was smart enough to back out of Ukraine, but he was not backing out of that $1 billion deal in China. And that's what is going on is, oops, there we go. Is it stopping? Yeah, there. There we go. Joe Biden departing in Beijing with China with his son Hunter on December 4th, 2013, right there. He's riding on Air Force Two. They are riding together to go meet to do the deal in China right now. Former Vice President Joe Biden's son, Hunter Biden, partnered with infamous mobster Whitey Bulger's nephew and former Secretary of State John Kerry's stepson for lucrative business deal with the Bank of China, according to Peter Schweizer's latest book. Schweizer points to the business deal with state-owned Bank of China, a $1.5 billion private equity investment, as a possible reason why the current presidential candidate has adopted a conciliatory attitude towards China. Hold on. There we go. And then it says the lucrative deal between the Bank of China and Hunter Biden's company was inked in 2013, weeks after Joe Biden brought his son along on an official trip to China. Schweitzer lays out the interesting cast of characters who partnered with Biden, such as the Thornton Group, a Thornton Group consulting firm, which is headed by James Bulger, the son of Massachusetts State Senator Billy Bulger. James is named after his uncle, James Whitey Bulger, who was killed in prison late last year after a decades-long career in the mob that landed him on the FBI's most wanted list. Also partnered with Biden is Chris Heinz, the stepson of John Kerry. Biden and Heinz control Rosemont Seneca Partners, a private equity firm that received billions of investments from China. You need to know that, guys, I'm not reading this from the paper, that Hunter Biden did this deal after being kicked out of the military for testing positive for cocaine, and after being on and before being on the board at Burisma, where it was the most corrupt gas company in Ukraine. Basically, it was Russian held. It wasn't even Ukrainian, because Ukrainian don't care for Russia, but it was a Russian-backed Ukrainian company. So, these guys made got billions of dollars of investments just a few weeks after returning from the trip with Vice President Joe Biden. They took him over there for whatever reason, made it and secretly he said whatever he had to say. So it says Schweitzer, whose latest book, Secret Empires, examines the tactics by political elites to accumulate wealth while in power, calls the timeline of Hunter Biden's business dealings with China as his father shaped foreign policy from the White House shocking, but points out that nobody knew enough to raise any questions. If it sounds shocking that a VP would shape U.S.-China policy as his son, who has scant experience in private equity, clinched a coveted $1 billion deal with an arm of the Chinese government, that's because it is. Schweitzer writes, until the publication of my book, no one knew the deal took place. Indeed, it took me a team of seasoned investigators nearly 2 years to unearth and report the facts. The details of dealings between Joe Biden, Heinz, and Bulger remain murky despite the investigation. Schweitzer has called for the Senate to further investigate Biden's foreign business dealings with both Ukraine and China. There's someone else calling for investigation into Biden and his son and another country's messing with it around in a foreign country. So now you've got Ukraine and China that the Bidens are doing business in, questionably. Quickly, this is, no, we're not even going to do that one. I want to do this. No reason to probe the Bidens. This is, no reason to probe the Bidens is the former Ukrainian. This is the prosecutor. When Joe Biden fired the original prosecutor, Victor Shokin, the one that was investigating his son, the Obama administration and Biden pushed to have this prosecutor, Yuri Lutsenko, put into office. That same man, Yuri Lutsenko, came out and said, "Don't worry, everyone. There's no reason to probe the Bidens." Even though the Bidens fired the people I replaced. So his credibility is what? BBC? This is why I say don't watch mainstream news. BBC is obviously a mainstream news channel, and yet they're failing to let you know that the Obama administration and Joe Biden put this man into office after firing the man that was investigating Biden's son. So his credibility in asking that question, whether they should be investigated, is already shot. But there's some bad news for the Bidens and all this, because Judicial Watch has filed a federal lawsuit and Tom Fitton don't play around. Now, yes, DC Dirty Laundry is a more right-wing journalist outlet. I say that they have really good tips to lead off from, but I wouldn't take an article and do an entire video on it. I like their tip. I'll go in and I'll look at their front page and I'll write down some certain things, but that'll be what I lead off with, and then I'll go find 6 other sources and read them and see what the real scoop is. So anyway, this is, here we go. Judicial Watch filed a federal lawsuit. Tom Fitton, announced today it filed a Freedom of Information Act lawsuit. Records about the firing of Victor's top prosecutor after then vice president threatened to withhold aid. The lawsuit was filed yesterday. To any and all records of communication regarding, concerning, or related to Victor Shokin's investigation of Mykola Solchevsky and Shokin's resignation at the Ukraine's prosecutor general. Any and all records of communication between any official, employee, or representative of the State Department and any official, employee, or representative of the office of the VP regarding Victor Shokin. So they're just saying they want all these records. That's their thing. They always want records. It's nothing new. But Tom Fitton gets his men when he gets these records. Tom Fitton is doing what Congress isn't doing. Judicial Watch is doing what Congress isn't doing. So let's take a quick look at least and see what he has to say about it.
Hi, I'm Matt Miano, the broadcast coordinator for Judicial Watch, and here with me today is Tom Fitton, president of Judicial Watch. Tom, what can you tell us about our latest lawsuit?
Well, Judicial Watch has stepped forward to file a new lawsuit over the Ukraine scandal involving Joe Biden. We had asked the State Department for documents about the firing of that Ukraine prosecutor that allegedly was investigating Joe Biden's son, a firing that took place at Joe Biden's insistence and under threat of Ukraine losing aid. So we asked for documents about that controversy, and of course we've been getting the stonewall, and that's why we just filed a new federal lawsuit to get access to this information.
Okay. All right, so I just wanted you to hear that. Yeah, I went talk too long. Probably won't even be anybody left listening unless you're a real supporter. I really hope people do listen because it's necessary for us to know this information in order to get by in today's society. Know what's going on.